Hi modelers, Brian from HLJ back again. We're building the Fujimi 1/72nd scale Type 10 main battle tank from the Japan Ground Self-Defense Forces. I got started on it last night and we're going to take a look at the tracks, running gear, and suspension. Last night I got started on the Type 10 kit here that we introduced last week. Dug into it last night, found a couple hours to sit down, actually about an hour and a half. Worked on the running gear, the road wheels, and the tracks. And I mentioned suspension earlier before, but as I said last time, the suspension's molded in, so that saves a lot of time. Now, this particular tank has 5 double road wheels per side, so that means you got a total of 20 to clean up, and they're very tiny. And again, as I keep saying, with big hands like me, it's a little hard. But the sprue attachment points are rather nicely done, and with a nice sharp set of nippers, which I didn't bring with me today because I don't need, they cut off the sprues pretty easily, and as you can see, they're quite tiny. Now, I've already done one side. I finished one whole side last night. Put the road wheels on, sprocket wheel, drive sprocket, the idler wheel, and the tracks, which are very nicely detailed. They're length and length tracks. There's the bottom run, the top run, and then 2 little runs at the end that go on there. And assembly was very simple. The fit was pretty good. I did run into some problems, but that was my own fault, which I'll discuss as we move on. Now this side, I've got it to where Fujimi shows in their instructions to where before you put the tracks on, they'll have you put the road wheels on first. And I didn't take too much time cleaning up the road wheels. As you see here, you can see some remnants of the sprue attachment points, because as I keep saying, you're never going to see half of this stuff. Not even half of it. 80% of these wheels are going to be covered. But at this point, you could go through and use your sandpaper and you know, clean up the nubs a little bit if you wanted to. But again, this is never going to be seen in there. Also, as I mentioned last time, Fujimi doesn't include any return roller detail. You've got the road wheels, and then there'll be the drive sprocket and idler. Whether this tank actually has return rollers or not, I don't know. None of the references I've seen have showed it with the side skirts off, so it's hard to say. Modern tanks like this generally do have them, so I'm sure they're in there somewhere. But not included in this kit, because again, you're never going to see them. So what I'm going to do now is, following Fujimi's instructions, is I'm going to put the tracks on. Now this is, I went ahead and assembled the tracks last night, as I mentioned before. It's got 1 run on the top, 1 run on the bottom with the you know, the bends already in there, and the drive sprocket and the idler wheel. Now this Fujimi kit is very, very well molded, very sharp detail, although I did run into a little bit of flash at one of the most difficult parts, around the drive sprocket with the sprocket teeth. There was a little bit of flash in there, and the sprocket teeth themselves aren't particularly well defined, probably to help with the fit of the tracks themselves. So it was so far, that was the trickiest part, just scraping off the little extra flash on there. But then again, with the side skirts on, which I'll actually put on later, you don't see much of it at all. Also, as I mentioned last time, Fujimi provides the tracks as the steel cleated versions, but they also provide you with a fret of the I'm speaking Japanese now, the rubber pads that they use for street use. They want to tear up the streets, and they give you a whole fret of billions and billions of these little guys here, which were quite a bit of a pain in the butt to cut out and clean up there, but I went ahead and did 4 anyway, just to show folks at home what they would look like on here. It didn't take too much time cleaning them up, just put 4 on here, and that was rather time consuming. Very tiny, small parts, a sprue attachment point at each end that would need to be cleaned up better than I've done here. But when you put them on there, they look okay. They don't stand, I thought they were going to be a little thick, but they look pretty good. But I'm not going to do that because I like the looks of the tracks without it. Also, I put them on the top because you're never going to see them there. Now, Fujimi would have you, and they give you parts to put on the whole run of the tracks, but as I keep saying, you're never going to see the top, so even if you wanted to use the rubber pads, really no reason to put them on the top. Nice little interesting parts. If you don't use them here, yeah, you can probably use them as greeblies for some sci-fi build you're doing, or any other kind of things. So what I'm going to do now is I will follow Fujimi's instructions and throw the tracks on here. Now I like to use good old Tamiya cement. I've had this particular bottle forever. It's getting a little thick and oozy, as you can see in here. But I'm going to use that for the main gluing, and I'll use some super thin cement later. Let's get the product placement correct. Is that right? Okay. Tommy up, and whoops, the little ring part. I hate it when it does that. Put it back on there. Comes off. Really doesn't make a difference, but it's gonna stay there. Yeah, probably ought to get a new bottle because this is a little sticky. But anyway, just gonna slop a little bit on that end and a little bit onto this end. And you know what? I'm going to do a little bit on the bottom of each one of these wheels because we want the road wheels to sit snug on there. And out of the way. That one goes on that end, that one goes on that end. And it is glued on. Right. Now, I want to get all the little road wheels lined up correctly, so I'm going to go ahead and throw those all on there right now. Slop on a little bit of the thick liquid glue here for each one of these sections. Blink, blop, bloop. One more. All right. And now, this is the hard part when you got big fingers. I actually used a set of tweezers to do this last night. I'm not so worried about getting these lined up right now because you'll see in a minute I'll whip out a secret weapon. Oops, that one's not on there. Steady, steady. All right. A little finger pressure for each one to get them kind of lined up. Now, I'm going to put aside the thicker glue and whip out the Tamiya extra thin cement. It's very viscous, very watery. Do the old one-handed unscrew here. Oops. Ring stayed at the top this time too. There we go. That's the way Daddy likes it. All right, now I'm going to go through here and just let a little seep under each one of these road wheels. Boop. Yep, you got to make the sound effects when you glue stuff, just so everyone knows what's going on. There we go. And there we go. And just to make doubly sure, I'm a little overkill probably, but I'm actually going to go in the back here and loop some under the inner road wheels. Don't know if you're seeing this, my big meat hooks are covering up everything. All right. Now I'm going to eyeball this. The good way to do it is look at it from the side with some light behind it. Yeah, the road wheels are lined up nice. Sometimes I see some fantastic builds, beautifully painted, beautifully weathered, but the road wheels are all like wonky, like this. If you look at them from the edge, this one's like this one's like that. Not really dead on straight. So that's an important thing to consider. Now I'm looking at this and it's looking pretty good. I had some problems with the other run last night. And what I use is just a little piece of disposable chopsticks. This is one bit, and I just use it like almost like a level, I guess. Just kind of smush it on there. Oops. Let the chips fall where they may, and then did it actually make it worse? Let me see here. All right. No, that's good. Eyeball it again. I don't know if you guys can see that. My Mark 1 eyeball is saying that looks pretty good. Might be cambered out a bit. I'll actually whip out the old X-Acto using the top of that to press down. Another thing you'd like to see with tracks is that all the road wheels are sitting as snugly to the tracks as possible, because as you can well imagine, tanks weigh a lot, and you're usually not going to have road wheels floating off the track unless there's some kind of terrible suspension problem, which in combat you can see. Alright, that's looking pretty good. I'm pretty satisfied with that. One more press with this thing, make sure everybody is lined up pretty as you please. Yeah, I'm going to call that straight. Final check to make sure the tracks look straight. You don't want them bowed out or bowed in. No, that's looking pretty good. All right, now I'm going to hold this for a minute. I'll show you a little thing I and probably millions of other models do when they want something to dry flat like that. But when I was building this last night, I got this side of the tracks on perfectly. The fit was fine, no hassle at all, got it on there great. But then I wanted to halfway assemble this side and show it to you guys this morning. And bonehead that I am, I actually had the sprocket on the other way when I put it in there. I was looking at the wrong section of the instructions, not paying attention. So yeah, paying attention is crucial if you're a modeler. And notice that the sprocket was the other way around, so I immediately took it out and put it back on. I got the idler wheel on and got everything together there, and while I was monkeying around with that on here, I must have applied some pressure to the rear of the track here and kind of scooted the two sections of the track over. So it was kind of, one section was like this and one section was like that. It didn't look very good. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'll get in there. Used the Tamiya extra thin super cement to kind of loosen up the joint again in there and tried to get it back, but unfortunately didn't quite get it back as clean as I wanted to. So you got a little bit of a step there. However, as I keep saying, a lot of mud guards and side skirts and all that on here. The Type 10 tank has some huge mud skirts on the back, so you're never going to see it. So, disaster averted. But yeah, patience, checking things twice, some of the keys to modeling. All right, now this is actually staying on there pretty good, but to get a nice, good, solid fit on here, I'm going to use one of these big heavy camera batteries and just gently lay it on here. And I'm just going to walk away, and that's going to be it. The suspension is finished. Although this episode isn't, I wanted to show you one more thing about the side skirts we keep talking about. I'm going to take this off for now. I'll put that on when I leave. This is the side skirt side hull assembly, and I'm not going to glue it on right now because I still got some other things to do, but just going to show you if I can get it on correctly. Yeah, so this is how much it's going to cover. You can just see a hint of the road wheels at the bottom. The tracks, essentially from the top half down. Again, there will be mud flaps or mud covers on the front here. That's going to cover most of this, as you can see in the box art. Covers most of that. So essentially, all the skirts and mud flaps and everything will cover all the joints for the tracks, pretty much. So you really don't have to worry too much about getting it super cleanly assembled. Of course, it'll be on the other side, and then the hull goes on the top. You get some stuff on the back, and that's essentially it. And then lots of little tiny details that go on it. So I'm going to take this part off again, set her down here. This is the side we just did. Sits nice and flat. Put the battery on there. You don't want to put something too heavy on there because then you might distort some things. Eyeball it again to make sure everybody's lined up nice. I'm satisfied. Well, that's it. Got the tracks on today. For next time, what I'll do is I'll just go put the whole thing together, put all the detail parts and everything on there. The model will be finished, but it will be unpainted. So we'll talk about painting strategies. I'm looking at some different ways of doing it right now. I haven't decided yet. I don't know if I want to go with acrylic paints or with some lacquer paints. Tamiya makes nice acrylic paints in exact GA Type colors for this tank, but Gunze also makes the exact colors in lacquer. And I think, as I mentioned before, I'm going to first prime the whole thing in black, which is also affecting my decision because I can't find a good lacquer flat black that I want to paint it with. And if you can't really put lacquers on top of enamels or acrylics like that. So you have to start with lacquer and put things on top of that because lacquer is very strong and will eat through just about anything. So right now, not sure which one I'm going to go. Probably going to do just regular Tamiya enamel flat black for the primer. And then I might use the Tamiya, not enamels, the Tamiya acrylics for the GA Type colors. So next time, the kit will be completely built and we'll talk more about paint.